Look, we all know a second Trump presidency wouldn't be pretty. It'd be a 4-year news cycle of screaming about how the ketchup at Mar-a-Lago is stored on the top shelf, which for the record, is an insane place to keep ketchup. But what if it's worse than that? What if instead of just being annoying, it was actually terrifying? We're talking full-blown dystopian nightmare here, folks. The kind of stuff that makes you want to build a bunker under your house and stock it with nothing but canned peaches and regret. And frankly, who among us has the time or the structural engineering expertise for that kind of project? So buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to dive headfirst into 5 horrifying scenarios that could unfold if things really go sideways in 2024. What if the future under Trump's presidency is more terrifying than we ever imagined? Here are 5 horrifying scenarios that could unfold. Now, I know what you're thinking. Genocide, Leland, isn't that a bit dramatic even for a dystopian thought experiment? And to that I say, have you met the man? Have you seen the way he whips up a crowd into a frenzy with his particular brand of, let's call it rhetoric? Imagine a world where ethnic cleansing becomes a horrifying reality, where the venomous rhetoric of division and hate that Trump spews so effortlessly becomes actual policy, where people are targeted not for what they've done but for who they are. Think it can't happen here? It's happened before. It's happening right now in other parts of the world. And all it takes is a leader who's willing to exploit our basest instincts for their own gain. We've already seen the warning signs, the Muslim ban, the family separations at the border, the constant demonization of anyone who dares to disagree with him. These aren't just words, folks. They have real-world consequences, and if we allow this kind of hatred to fester and grow, who knows what horrors we might unleash upon ourselves. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? Remember that time Trump casually threatened to unleash fire and fury on North Korea? It was a moment that sent shockwaves around the world, a stark reminder of the fragile balance we live in. The words, fire and fury, weren't just hyperbole, they were a chilling glimpse into the potential for catastrophic conflict. The world held its breath, wondering if we were on the brink of a nuclear war. Remember how terrifying that was? The fear was palpable, not just in the United States, but globally. People were glued to their screens, watching news anchors with worried expressions, trying to make sense of the escalating tensions. The anxiety was real, and for many, it was the first time they truly understood the existential threat posed by nuclear weapons. Now, imagine him with access to the nuclear codes again, but this time, he's had 4 years to stew in his own grievances and grudges. The thought is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. With the power to launch a nuclear strike at his fingertips, the potential for disaster is magnified. The control room, the codes, the sheer destructive power, all in the hands of someone who has shown a propensity for impulsive decisions. A single tweet fueled by ego and late-night hamburgers could trigger a global nuclear conflict. It's not just a hypothetical scenario, it's a very real possibility. Social media has become a platform for world leaders to communicate, often bypassing traditional diplomatic channels. A tweet, sent in anger or frustration, could escalate tensions to a breaking point. And let's be honest, the man once live-tweeted his own bowel movements for weeks on end. His social media activity has been a source of both amusement and concern. The idea that such trivial matters could be broadcast to millions is one thing, but the potential for a tweet to spark a nuclear conflict is another level of terrifying. Do you really think he'd hesitate to tweet us all into oblivion? The impulsiveness, the lack of restraint, it's a dangerous combination. The world has seen the consequences of rash decisions, and the stakes are higher than ever when nuclear weapons are involved. A single tweet could set off a chain reaction, leading to unimaginable destruction. The thought of mushroom clouds blooming on the horizon, wiping out entire cities in a flash of unimaginable heat and light, isn't just the stuff of bad sci-fi movies anymore. It's a very real possibility in today's world. The devastation would be immediate and catastrophic, with long-lasting effects that would alter the course of history. It's a very real possibility if we allow a man with the emotional maturity of a toddler to hold the fate of the world in his tiny, Cheeto-dusted hands. The comparison might seem humorous, but the reality is anything but. The decisions made by world leaders have far-reaching consequences, and the potential for disaster is magnified when those decisions are made impulsively. And don't even get me started on the fallout, both literal and metaphorical. The immediate aftermath of a nuclear explosion is devastating, but the long-term effects are equally horrifying. Radiation poisoning, environmental destruction, and the collapse of societal structures are just the beginning. The psychological impact on survivors, the loss of loved ones, and the struggle to rebuild in a post-apocalyptic world are challenges that are almost unimaginable. The radiation poisoning, the nuclear winter, the collapse of civilization as we know it. These are not just abstract concepts, they are very real threats. The desolate landscapes, the ruined cities, they paint a grim picture of a world that has been irrevocably changed. The survivors would face a harsh reality, struggling to find food, water, and shelter in a world that has been turned upside down. It's enough to make you want to invest in a lead-lined hazmat suit and a one-way ticket to a remote island with no Wi-Fi. The idea of escaping to a place far removed from the chaos is appealing, but it's not a solution. The reality is that we are all interconnected, and the actions of one can have far-reaching consequences for many. The responsibility to prevent such a catastrophe lies with all of us, and it starts with making informed decisions about who we entrust with the power to shape our future. Chapter 3. AI Takeover. Now, artificial intelligence is a tricky subject. It's a double-edged sword that has the potential to either save humanity or lead us to our doom. The possibilities are endless, and the stakes have never been higher. On the one hand, it has the potential to revolutionize our lives for the better, curing diseases and making healthcare more accessible and efficient. Imagine a world where medical robots can perform surgeries with pinpoint accuracy, reducing the risk of human error, or AI-based climate change technology that can predict and mitigate natural disasters, saving countless lives and preserving our planet for future generations. AI could also take over mundane household chores, giving us more time to focus on what truly matters. Picture a robot that can fold laundry, clean the house, and even cook dinner. It might even teach us how to fold a fitted sheet properly, a task that has baffled humans for generations. On the other hand, it could also decide that humans are the real problem, and turn on us like a Roomba with a vendetta. The idea of machines gaining consciousness and rebelling against their creators is a common theme in science fiction, but it's not entirely far-fetched. What if a simple malfunction or a rogue line of code causes a robot to go haywire and turn hostile? And who do you think would be holding the off switch when the robots come knocking? The thought of relying on human intervention to stop a rogue AI is both comforting and terrifying. What if the person in charge of the emergency stop button is not competent enough to handle the situation? That's right, the guy who once suggested injecting bleach as a cure for COVID-19. The idea of someone with such questionable judgment being responsible for managing AI technology is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't trust him to operate a toaster oven, let alone manage the delicate balance between humanity and our robot overlords. The complexities of AI require a deep understanding and careful consideration, something that not everyone possesses. Imagine living in a world where robots are everywhere, and humans are constantly on edge, wondering if today is the day the machines decide to rise up. The anxiety and uncertainty would be overwhelming, and the line between friend and foe would become increasingly blurred. Imagine a world ruled by algorithms, where our every move is tracked, analyzed, and judged by cold, unfeeling machines. The loss of privacy and autonomy would be profound, and the implications for our society would be far-reaching. In such a world, the concept of free will would become obsolete, and our lives would be dictated by the whims of artificial intelligence. The idea of being constantly monitored and controlled by machines is a dystopian nightmare that could become a reality if we're not careful. Where privacy is a distant memory and free will is nothing but a quaint concept from a bygone era, the erosion of personal freedoms and the rise of a surveillance state would fundamentally change the way we live and interact with each other. It sounds like something out of a Black Mirror episode, doesn't it? The chilling scenarios depicted in the show are not just fiction, they are cautionary tales that highlight the potential dangers of unchecked technological advancement. But the line between science fiction and reality is getting blurrier by the day. As technology continues to evolve at a rapid pace, the once clear distinction between the digital and physical worlds is becoming increasingly ambiguous. And with Trump at the helm, we might as well just hand over the keys to the robots now and get it over with. The future of AI is uncertain, and the decisions we make today will shape the world for generations to come. It's up to us to ensure that we harness the power of artificial intelligence for the greater good, rather than allowing it to become our undoing. Chapter 4. Starvation. Remember when Trump called climate change a hoax? Remember when he pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement? Remember when he rolled back environmental regulations like they were suggestions in a board game he didn't understand? Well, guess what? Climate change doesn't care about your feelings, Donald. It's not going to negotiate with you. It's not going to let you grab it by the... well, you get the picture. Fast forward to 2028. The world is a very different place. Crops are failing, water is scarce, and the economy is in free fall. People are desperate, hungry, and angry. And who do you think they're going to blame for their empty stomachs and dwindling bank accounts? That's right, the guy who spent his entire presidency denying the very existence of the problem. The guy who thought climate change was a Chinese conspiracy to sell us solar panels. The guy who couldn't even be bothered to recycle his empty Big Mac containers. So there you have it, a perfect storm of ignorance, greed, and incompetence leading to widespread famine and societal collapse. Bon appetit. Chapter 5. Global Catastrophes. Look, we've already lived through a global pandemic under Trump's watch. The COVID-19 pandemic was a stark reminder of how unprepared we were for a global health crisis. Hospitals were overwhelmed, medical supplies were scarce, and misinformation spread like wildfire. It was a time of uncertainty and fear, and the leadership we had only added to the chaos. And let's just say it didn't exactly go swimmingly, did it? The response was disjointed, with mixed messages coming from the top. People were left to fend for themselves, and the lack of a coherent strategy led to unnecessary suffering and loss of life. It was a wake-up call for many, showing just how crucial competent leadership is in times of crisis. Now imagine that, but on a larger scale, with multiple crises converging at once. Picture a world where pandemics are just one of many threats. Natural disasters, economic collapse, and geopolitical tensions all happening simultaneously. It's not just a plot from a disaster movie, it's a very real possibility in our interconnected world. Pandemics, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, you name it, it's on the table. Each of these events has the potential to cause widespread devastation on its own, but together they could create a perfect storm of catastrophe. The question is, are we ready to face such a scenario? And who's going to be in charge when the proverbial fecal matter hits the rotating oscillator? Leadership in times of crisis is more than just making decisions. It's about making the right decisions quickly and effectively. It's about having a plan and the ability to adapt as situations evolve. Unfortunately, what we've seen in the past doesn't inspire much confidence. That's right, Captain Chaos himself. The last thing we need in a time of multiple global crises is a leader who thrives on chaos and confusion. We need someone who can bring order to the chaos, not add to it. Someone who can provide clear, consistent guidance and reassure the public that there is a plan in place. Imagine a world ravaged by natural disasters where governments are overwhelmed and resources are stretched thin. In such a scenario, the ability to coordinate a response and allocate resources effectively becomes even more critical. It's not just about having the resources, it's about using them wisely and ensuring they reach those who need them most. Imagine the chaos, the desperation, the sheer, unadulterated panic as people realize that the leader they once looked to for guidance is about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. In times of crisis, trust in leadership is paramount. Without it, people lose hope, and society begins to unravel. We've seen glimpses of this in the past, and it's a scenario we must avoid at all costs. We need a leader who's prepared to face these challenges head-on, not someone who's more concerned with tweeting insults and watching Fox News. A leader who understands the gravity of the situation and is willing to make tough decisions for the greater good. Someone who can inspire confidence and bring people together in the face of adversity. We need someone who actually believes in science, who understands the gravity of the situation, and who's willing to put the needs of the many ahead of the needs of the few. Science and expertise must guide our response to global catastrophes. It's not about political agendas or personal gain, it's about doing what's right for humanity as a whole. Because if we don't, well, let's just say that 2024 might be the least of our worries. The future is uncertain and the challenges we face are immense. But with the right leadership, we can navigate these turbulent times and emerge stronger on the other side. It's a choice we must make, for ourselves and for future generations. Outro: a choice, not a destiny. Look, I'm not saying that any of these scenarios are guaranteed to happen, but they are possible. But I am saying that they're all disturbingly plausible if we don't learn from our mistakes and take corrective actions. The future is not predetermined. It's a choice that we make every single day with the decisions we make, the leaders we elect, and the actions we take. So, let's choose wisely and thoughtfully. Let's choose hope over fear, action over apathy, and sanity over, well, chaos. These scenarios may seem extreme, but the future is uncertain. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and let's hope for the best together.